Our film starts with Oleg, a loser smuggler. He goes to move a caviar shipment on a small boat, but the boat sinks with the caviar. The boat owner tells him, "Don't you dare think I'm Russian and I'll deal with you socialist style. No, Yabasha. This boat is pure capitalism and you've got to compensate me." Oleg is broke, so he's forced to swap his new car for the boat owner's old one until he pays him back. Oleg goes to his girlfriend, Sveta, who works at a bank, and asks her for a new loan to cover the old loan he lost on the caviar shipment. Sveta refuses to give him the loan and suggests he come with her to her family. They might help, and even though Oleg doesn't like her family, he's forced to go. And now let me introduce you to Sveta's family. Her older sister Rita is a wild one and dreams of joining a circus troupe. Her dad is Boris, an ex-con on 5 years of house arrest, and he loves to sing. Sasha, meanwhile, is the younger sister. She wants to grow up, be independent, and get away from this weird family. And she's got a crush on Oleg, her sister's boyfriend. And this is Tolik. He wants to join the army, but as you can see, yeah. And the grandpa, the oldest in the family, is super irritable and gets annoyed by literally anything. Oleg arrives to have lunch with the family. And of course, Boris grabs the guitar and just spends the time singing for no reason. And when Oleg tries to talk to him about the money, he ignores him and keeps strumming. Oleg gets annoyed and steps outside to find Tolik playing with the dogs. And we find out Tolik wants to join the army just to train dogs. Oleg comes back again to ask Boris to help him, put the house up as collateral so he can get the loan, but Boris refuses. And during their argument, a mysterious meteor hits the house and crashes into the grandpa's room. The whole family rushes to check on him and find him still alive. Makes sense. He survived Stalin's rule. No way a meteor kills him. Everyone's worried about the house except Oleg, who's fixated on the meteor and sure that if they sell it, it'll bring in a lot of money. The next day, the grandpa remembers he's old and decides to die. And Oleg says goodbye and goes to tell Sveta that her grandpa died. But meanwhile, Sveta vanishes from the bed. And Tolik runs over to tell him the meteor turned into a liquid and spread through the whole house. The first one to be affected by the liquid is Sasha, and she gains a superpower. She becomes so strong, she can bend metal. And Sveta, meanwhile, gains the power of invisibility. And she keeps talking to Oleg, but he can't see her. And Rita keeps screaming because she's flying in the air for no reason. And it's clear she's gained the power of flight. After a while, Sveta shows up with only her lower half visible, and everyone freaks out. And they freak out even more when they find the grandpa has come back to life. But moments later, Rita flies out of the house and falls to the ground. And Sveta becomes visible again, and even the grandpa dies again. That's when they realize the reason for their powers is the meteor, and they also have to be close to each other for their powers to work. Meaning, when Sveta left the house, the grandpa died again. And when she came back, he came back to life. The family heads out to the doctor to find out what's happening to them. And the doctor examines them and reassures them they're fine. And there are no physical problems. The family returns home. And Tolik is upset because he doesn't have any superpowers, but as soon as he goes down to play with the dogs, he discovers he understands them. And he gets super happy. Poor Oleg, meanwhile, is very upset because he doesn't have any superpower at all. He picks up a piece of metal from the ground and tries to break it or control it or do anything, but no use. And even though the family has superpowers, they're scared. Sveta is afraid she'll have invisible babies, but Oleg isn't interested in what she's saying and asks her about the bank and the money in it. The next day, the grandpa wakes up, puts his affairs in order, and decides to kill himself. He wraps a noose around his neck, but nothing happens to him because his superpower is not dying. Boris then discovers his superpower, teleportation. Like he's sitting in the bathroom but too lazy to go to the room, so he just zaps himself there instantly. The whole family goes out on a nature trip to learn how to control their superpowers. And that's when Oleg pitches Boris a plan to rob the bank. He asks him to use their superpowers so they can make a lot of money. Of course, Boris refuses the idea, and Oleg gets mad and decides to walk away from them so they'll lose their superpowers. Oleg takes Sveta and drives off, but on the way, the mafia stop them and ask Oleg about the money he's supposed to pay them for the caviar shipment. And they threaten that if he doesn't pay within 1 week, they'll kill him and his girlfriend's whole family. At that point, Sveta realizes why he wanted the loan, apologizes to him, and decides to help. The two of them decide to convince the family about the plan. They go to Boris and Sveta asks him to buy a new house. And when he refuses, she keeps crying because their house is old and they need to move. So Boris agrees. And since he doesn't have money for a new house, he decides to go along with Oleg's plan. The whole family gathers to start planning the robbery, and at night they celebrate their plan. The next day during breakfast, Boris asks Oleg to fulfill the family's requests first, so they'll join him in the operation. First up is Rita, for example. They take her to the circus so she can impress the manager with her ability to fly and join the troupe. And of course, the manager agrees, and Rita fulfills her dream. At night, Oleg wakes up from sleep feeling his pants are wet. He says he hopes it isn't real. And indeed, he discovers his superpower. He can shoot water from his fingers. What a waste of time. The next day, they go to the bank to review their plan. Sasha is with them, and she reassures Sveta that if she gets jailed, she'll take care of Oleg for her and live with him. Sveta goes into the bank to learn the secret codes and find out where the money is. But when they get back home, Oleg is shocked to see Tolik has shaved his head, and he finds out he's been accepted into the army and has pulled out of their operation. Oleg gets upset, and he goes to bribe one of the army officers to get him kicked out. And indeed, Tolik gets kicked out and is very upset, but Oleg assures him he'll get him back in, after they rob the bank first. As for the grandpa, he asks them to grant him his wish, which is to die, and that they have to let him die after the operation. And Sasha's only wish is Oleg, and he decides to take her on a date, just the two of them. Dude, she's a minor. The mafia guys are at the restaurant watching them, and they decide to mess with him as soon as they see him with a young girl. But Sasha gets pissed and beats them all up, and then they run away from the place. Now we jump to the day of the plan. The family arrives at the bank. Sveta makes herself invisible and goes into the bank, and the family waits for her at the bank's front entrance. After a while, the bank van arrives and the guards tell them to move. When they refuse, the guards force them aside, which pushes them away from Sveta, and her powers cut out at a very critical moment. A bank employee sees Sveta naked and is shocked. But the family quickly moves to a spot near the bank so they can regain their powers again. At that moment, Sveta disappears and the employee thinks he imagined it. The operation fails and the family tries to head back home. But the police show up and stop them, and Boris freaks out because he's supposed to be at home and not leave it. He decides to teleport, but unfortunately finds himself in the police car. The family goes back home and they discover Boris isn't wanted by the police or anything. He's just delusional. They're all upset because the plan failed. But the joy comes back when Oleg tells Rita he got her a big stage offer. Unfortunately, the show doesn't go well. Rita gets nervous and literally flies out of the circus. Oleg goes out to look for her, but the mafia guys grab him and beat him up. Oleg returns home angry at the family for being selfish and only thinking about themselves, and he decides to accept his fate and walk away from everything. But Boris decides to help him, to the point he kidnaps him so they can go rob the bank at night. The family puts women's stockings over their faces for disguise, and they decide to use all their powers to rob the bank. Rita flies and hooks a metal chain onto the bank window, and Sasha blocks the bank entrance with a huge truck so nobody sees them. Then she yanks the chain and smashes the window so they can get in. And the grandpa goes off to distract the people near the bank. And Boris teleports into the bank to steal the money, and Sasha goes with him to open all the doors for him with her strength. Then she rips out the safe and throws it outside the bank. And when the police arrive, Tolik controls the dogs and sicks them on them so they can escape with the safe. And the grandpa sets the bank on fire and throws the money to the people next to the bank so the police arrest them. And finally, the family pulls off the plan. They go to a place far from people, and that's when the grandpa asks them to grant his wish and let him die. The family says their goodbyes and leaves him alone to die. But after a few minutes, the family can't stand having the grandpa away from them, and they go back to him, so he comes back to life. But the grandpa gets mad at them and tells them he reported his death to the police, and they need to run now. Before the police show up, on the way, Boris tells them he's going to get a big house for them all to live in together, but each of them has already decided to leave the house and live their own life. At that moment, Sveta realizes the money will change them and wants to bring them back together. But Oleg refuses, so she gives him his share and tells him she's breaking up with him. And indeed, Oleg goes to hand the money to the mafia and decides to run away with the rest of the money. But while he's at the airport, he sees on TV that Sveta's family has been jailed because they went to claim the grandpa's body to keep their superpowers, but the funeral company filed a lawsuit against them. Oleg goes to the company director and offers him a lot of money for the body, to the point he pays all the money he has. And during the family's trial, Oleg enters the courtroom with the grandpa, and the family regains their superpowers. The grandpa is pissed because they brought him back from the dead and starts hitting everyone. And Boris gets out of the cage, and Sasha breaks the bars to help her siblings. Rita flies and steals the case files, and they escape. The police are waiting for them outside, but Rita flies to distract them, and the rest escape by car. And in the end, Oleg asks the mafia to help smuggle them out of all of Russia so they can start their lives together somewhere new. And with that, we've reached the end of the film.